Hey, this is Shiloh Lundahl,
And Jason Moss.
and you are watching the Improved channel focused on real estate investing. What we wanted to talk about was how do we keep our business running when we are out of town. A couple years ago, I went through a real estate training that was a long, expensive training. It was one of those expensive guru trainings, and I paid for coaching on the side as well. And one thing that my coach emphasized that I now, considering where I've come with real estate investing, I now understand the wisdom of what he said. He said, and he reiterated over and over and over again, if you want to grow with real estate investing, you have to get an assistant. So before, when I just started out, and you don't have to do this right at the beginning, but when I first started out, I had a rental property and I had a property I was trying to flip, and I would go out there and I would go and mow the grass and do all of these things, and I was basically doing everything myself. And menial jobs that I would stop, my therapy practice to go in and mow the grass or whatever during a break, and it just wasn't working out great. But what I learned was I needed to get an assistant, and so at that time I hired an assistant who was a referral from somebody, and she started working, and it freed up my life. It was nice to have somebody doing some of those tasks that I could pay someone less than what I make per hour. I could work at doing what I do really well, and then I could pay them to take care of a lot of these little things. Worked out great. And it worked out great until a lot of things just kind of started to fall apart with her life, and it made it difficult for her to actually get many things done. And so we had to hire another assistant. When we hired the other assistant was just completely on it, and she got so many things done. And that's basically kind of where we're at right now. We're here because we each have an assistant that's taking care of the day-to-day operations for our rentals. And for the properties that we have out in both in Arizona and North Carolina. So it's been awesome. It's been freeing to be able to have an assistant. What's it been like for you?
If you get to the point in your business where you're too busy, you feel like you're too busy, right? I think that's the point you need to look at getting an assistant, because chances are, like Shiloh said, there are tons of things that you're doing that are probably beneath your potential. So let me give you an example. So say, for example, a lot of people do flips and they're like, oh, I'm going to paint the house myself because I can save a little bit of money. But if you do that, it's interesting because you're basically saving the amount that you would pay a painter, right? So you're taking that time and you're getting painters' wages, which is nothing wrong with that, but you could possibly be making more money elsewhere. You look at the average of all the things that you do, and there's 20% that usually produces 80% of your results.
The Pareto principle.
Okay. Basically, there's a portion of your time that usually produces the best, the majority of your result, the good results that you're looking for. So you want to focus on getting rid of that 80%, focusing on that 20%, and making that 20% now 80% or 100% if you can. And that's all you do, and everything else gets pushed aside. So when I first hired my assistant, it was a little nerve-wracking, because I was like, okay, it's gonna be $1,000 every 2 weeks to get her to come on, because she was a professional that really kind of knew her stuff, and I'd have to train her a ton. So I was like, if I bring her over, that's a big chunk to swallow as a budding entrepreneur and as a business owner. But I have never looked back. I have not. I've never not had an assistant after that, because I realized that it freed me up so much after the initial training, which is even harder because you have less time because you're training them, but it's only for a short period of time. Once you get past that, it's like smooth sailing. You look at this and you go in and you can really focus on that 20%, and that's where my business really started to boom. That in conjunction with a little bit of marketing that I didn't realize had such a big impact and was a necessity in a lot of businesses. And that's a key point that a lot of people don't get, is the marketing. But having somebody to take care of that stuff, and when you look at a business, you have all these hats, right? At first, you're the accountant, you're the bookkeeper, you're everything. You're the business owner, and the faster you can replace yourself in those things, again, you're not paying yourself to be an accountant. You're paying yourself to be the entrepreneur, the creative thinker, and that's where the money's at.
And if you want to get yourself in trouble, try to do your accounting
Yeah.
when you're not an accountant, when your business starts to get big. So that's what I was trying to do, and I'm like, I took some accounting classes, I should be able to do this, but man, when it comes to real estate investing, there's so many things that that you don't know unless you are an accountant, and then you have all of the training. And then when you get a letter from the IRS, and I get letters from the IRS all the time, and if I didn't have a good accountant, I'd be like, oh, what do I do? It says I owe this money, what happened?
Now you
But
just
then I
like,
give it
forward.
then I give it to my accountant. I say, hey, I got this letter. He's like, oh yeah, they didn't take into consideration this one thing. I'll just send him a letter. And so I pay him to have peace of mind because he takes care of all of my accounting issues. Very, very helpful. But at the very beginning, again, just like Jason said, you're not going to be going in and hiring this huge team at the very beginning. And really, if you only have 1 or 2 or maybe 3 rentals, it isn't that big of a deal. But if you really, really want to scale, then developing good relationships with everybody that needs to be there in order for you to be successful is a very, very important thing. So, Jason, I wanted to talk about, what are some aspects of a good assistant? What are some things that you've found and that I've found that make somebody a good assistant?
First thing that comes to mind is personal responsibility. They don't make excuses. You give them a task. The other probably the most important thing is they just figure it out. For me, if I just want to tell her to do something or him to do something, I just want it to get figured out, and I give them that latitude. That's an important key. If you don't give them the latitude to fail, or that okay, so to speak, to fail, and you're always harping on them for doing the wrong thing, whenever my assistant makes a mistake, I'm just like, oh well, next time let's figure this out and do it better. And they grow as a person. They're okay to. They make some of those minor decisions that they don't need to bug you all the time. That's the point of having an assistant, is to take this stuff off your plate. So you want to train them in the philosophy and what you're trying to do and how things work generally, but you've got to just take that into consideration as a part of the business. You're going to lose a portion of productivity and possibly some income. I've lost plenty of several deals because of my assistant, but that's okay because she's part of my team. It's part of the process. I've screwed up a lot of deals, so I can't get mad at her for screwing up a deal here and there. So it's just part of the game. You got to go into it knowing that that's going to happen.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is you're not trying to duplicate yourself in that I want to have somebody just like me doing these things. And if that is your goal, then you may want to take a deep look at how highly you think of yourself. I recognize that I have strengths and I have weaknesses. I'm not going to hire somebody just like me because I need somebody to be able to cover my weaknesses. And so that's what I do. I hire somebody that can do that. Somebody who's more organized than me. I really like working with people. I enjoy working with people. But when it comes to being able to organize all of the nitty gritty little details, I don't like details. I like big picture things. I don't like the nitty little details. And so it's helpful for me to have somebody that can focus on those details and that can help me get the information that I need when I need it. That's something that you want, is somebody who complements your skill set. The other thing that you want is you want to get an assistant, as Jason was talking about, that takes that personal responsibility, but also an assistant that is really good at problem solving. I know that I sent my assistant out to an area where there was a problem, and I said, hey, this is the problem. So she went out to the area and she figured out a way to find, it was a problem with plumbing in an area where we only have a few houses. And so she had to figure out, okay, how do I get a plumber to go and take care of this issue? And we called some of the plumbers that we had, and some are like, we don't go out that far. And so she's like, all right, well then what do I do? She called plumbers that were in the area and still struggled. Then she goes to Home Depot and she goes to the people that were that sold some plumbing things, and she's like, hey, which plumber comes in here a lot? And they gave her the name of a plumber. She was able to figure out how to get a hold of this guy, and she got him down there to fix the problem. And so I love that. I love having somebody work for me who can solve problems, who doesn't come to me and say, well, what do I do now? Well, what do I do now? Well, what do I do now? Because that would just, then it's just like me doing it myself. And so I love being able to hand off problems to somebody and having that person be so capable to handle the problems.
There is some of that. I come back and be like, hey, I couldn't figure this out, and then we may jump in and say, well, did you try this, or this? And they're like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that, because not everyone's going to be that the creative thinker, and maybe you're not. If you're not that creative thinker type, like Shiloh said, you need to find someone that complements you that maybe is, and maybe you're not the head of the ship. Maybe you're the engine room mechanic, and there's somebody else actually steering the ship that is that visionary or that creative thinker. So, it's not always about being the boss necessarily. It could be a partner that really complements you in the way that you need to get to where you're going.
Yeah. So we really wanted to do this video on the importance of getting an assistant. It is so freeing when you get an email that says that there's an issue with there's a water leak in a house
On Christmas Eve.
Oh yeah, on Christmas Eve, or that there's another. Usually, most of our problems have to do with water, or AC units. But it's so nice to know, and I get that email. My assistant gets the same email, and for me to think, oh, okay, yeah, she's got that. Boom. I now have
That's
just
huge.
Alleviated all of my worry about it, because I know that my assistant is there to take care of all of those things. And so it's great. And treat your assistants well. Find out what it is that they're looking for. Our assistant, we pay her, but at the same time, she really wants to build a portfolio. And so we've helped her over the last 2 years get up to 4 properties. And so that's great. Find out what your assistant wants. Help her or him, develop some goals, and then help them reach their goals, and treat them well. I really appreciate my assistant. She's made my life so much easier. So we want to do this video because if you're going to grow, you got to have an assistant. And so that's everything. That's the message that we want to send to you. If you liked it, go ahead and push that like button and subscribe to this channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts below. And we want you guys to have an awesome experience building a great real estate portfolio.